Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Can't Wait. Sounds terrible. That's Patrick. That's Eleni. Producer Grace is producing. You could also find her at Grace Draws Stuff. And we're going to live up to our billing today of Can't Wait Sounds Terrible, because what is more terrible than taxes? That's our theme for the day. And then also, we will finish up with another robust edition of Sounds Terrible. So, top story this week in the Tribune and the Sun-Times. That quote, this is from the Sun-Times/WBEZ. Property taxes outpaced inflation and grew well above wage growth over the last 30 years, shooting up nearly 182%, according to a new report from Cook County Treasurer Maria Pappas, a fellow Greek, a cousin of Eleni's. The county's property tax levy has increased from $6.8 billion in 1995 to $19.2 billion in 2024, or twice the rate of inflation. And the Tribune further noted that property taxes imposed by Chicago Public Schools, City Hall, and all local taxing bodies within Chicago's boundaries rose to nearly $9 billion in 2024 from about $3 billion in 1995. That's a 211% jump. The study also identified, according to Rick Pearson, 132 suburbs in Cook County, including schools, municipalities, park districts, and other agencies that raised their property taxes 160% to more than $10 billion from less than $4 billion over the same period. So, taxes are going up. We didn't need a study by Eleni's cousin to tell us this. I think the first victim of this, besides all of us who received property tax bills in the mail, was the Cook County assessor, Fritz Kagi, who, as the Tribune editorial board pointed out, it's a classic case of killing the messenger. Now, there's many in the property tax advocacy business who say that he wasn't so innocent, but at any rate, he just sends the assessments out. And there's a number of reasons, Eleni, why Treasurer Pappas may be doing this study, but what was your take other than to say, preach?
Yeah, first and foremost, I have no relation to Maria Pappas. We are not from the same village or same part of Greece, so I just need to put that out there. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, to your point, it doesn't take a study for us to figure this out. I mean, in my time in the legislature, this is a bipartisan issue that continues to hit a wall every single session. And, we've had all these blue ribbon commissions and all this stuff that is just lip service. So, I mean, I feel like on this very podcast have like vomited the mouth talking about how much I hate what's happened to my property taxes. I don't understand, especially when you see the disparities of some of these suburbs that, have low income families. Like, how are people paying their taxes? And I don't know what it's going to take for someone to do it. Like, A+ to Maria for doing a study, but it shouldn't take a study. We shouldn't need that. We already know this is a problem and it needs to be fixed. So, I mean, I guess you said, what do you say to that other than preach? I mean, I don't know what else you can say other than something needs to get done. And I don't know what else it's going to take for anybody to care enough about it.
The study, Patrick, said that obviously we've got the schools, we've got City Hall, and they've done a good job of raising taxes over the past 3 decades. But the state was also singled out by Maria Pappas, and she says that, of course, there's unfunded mandates by local governments. And she pointed to, as the Tribune editorial page put it, the most inexcusable of these mandates in recent times was Springfield's sweetening of pension benefits for certain police and firefighters in Chicago in 2025. And I'm reading more from the editorial. As he made his decision to sign that bill into law, adding $11 billion to the city's already mountainous pile of pension liabilities, a spokesperson for J.B. Pritzker said at the time, quote, that the governor remains committed to maintaining fiscal discipline at all levels of government and expects the city of Chicago to implement these changes with careful planning and fiscal discipline. And so the Tribune goes on to question, quote, just how does a locality go about implementing $11 billion in new obligations? Property taxes are pretty much the only way.
It is not good, and it's been a long time. I've been
That's
a long
hot
time.
take. That is a hot take.
Wow, I should go on CNN with that. I think the other aspect of the study and these other things that are at play, and just this past weekend, Mayor Scott Worley was on Fox 32 being interviewed about Naperville's three-peat of being named the best place to live. And
best place to live,
Eleni. This is all going to
Eleni.
connect here. This is all going to connect. Scott took the time to say in the 70s and the 80s, there was a deliberate plan to balance EAV growth and to make sure we just weren't bedroom communities, to make sure we had a viable economic development occurring. And I think we're all concerned at the state of economic development occurring in the city of Chicago and Cook County. There's a very high profile, long tenured sports team that is property taxes are a driving factor of their evaluation process. So if you're not growing your local tax base with a thoughtful economic development plan, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that your property taxes have to go up. And on Fox 32, the anchor said, you know what? I live in a bedroom community, and you're absolutely right. My property taxes are out of control because there's no one to shift and help contribute to the burden. And just the other week, I was talking to a prominent commercial landowner, and he said, I was just trying to fill an open cap in my commercial shop center in Cook County. $18 a square foot of my lease, just to fill this space, reduce CAM for the other tenants. $18 a square foot of the lease was going to that portion of the real estate tax bill. And we talk about an affordability crisis and why are there no small businesses? Why do chains take everything? It's all connected. It's all, and no one, as to Eleni's point, has the courage to do anything about it. Property taxes go up because spending goes up. Nobody wants to tell the units of government, live within your means, lower the cost of living, or grow the economy far faster than you're growing your spending. Basic math.
Well, there's some other issues in basic math that help to understand why. So there's been quite a bit coverage before, during, and after this study was released by the Treasurer's Office. Just a couple of days earlier, a potential contestant for the office of mayor. Did we mention that Maria Pappas, we have talked about this before, might run for mayor? Another guy that might run for mayor is Chicago Alderman Bill Conway, who represents a big chunk of the South Loop in downtown. And he wrote an op-ed in the Tribune about the Tribune's editorializing on the deteriorating fiscal outlook of the city's finances and the response of the credit rating agencies. And Conway's point is, the day is coming faster than most realize or want to admit, he said. Chicago's finances present serial overlapping crises. We carry a structural budget deficit that requires annual gymnastics to paper over, And this goes into the future at a rate of about $1 billion each year. We have roughly $40 billion, this is the city of Chicago, in unfunded pension liability, a promise made to city workers that we currently have no credible plan to keep. And then there was another contributing factor to city taxpayers like Eleni. So this was in a number of outlets over the past week or so. Let's start with Chicago Daily Law Bulletin. We get it delivered to the office every day, very old school. So the city of Chicago will pay $27 million to the family of a woman who was killed in an unauthorized police chase. Chicago cops can't just chase people like they do in the TV action series. They have to get approval of supervisors. The policy is pretty strict. And so a woman died in this crash several years ago. And the city, the plaintiff in this case tried to settle it for about $10 million. And the city kept fighting it. And now will pay $27 million instead of $10 million as offered in the settlement. Now, $7 million of that will come from insurance. This seems to happen more frequently than not. So another court battle involves a man who was wrongfully convicted as per the courts by one of the more notorious Chicago cops, Reinaldo Guevara, former retired Chicago police detective who cracked a lot of cases, but a lot of those cases have come back as being wrongful convictions by the court system. And Thomas Sierra spent 22 years in prison on a murder conviction before it was overturned in 2028. So he sued the city to get some compensation for the 22 years he lost of his life. Meanwhile, he got adjudicated to be innocent by a court, and the city continued to fight his conviction, even though another judge had ruled him to be innocent. After years of going back and forth and fighting with the city lawyers, the lawyers for Mr. Sierra, the wrongfully convicted individual, offered to settle for 14.7. The city refused. Not until the judge was about to face a trial in early 2025 did the city call off its hired lawyers and agree to a deal. By then, Sierra's price to walk away had risen to $17.5 million. So this is a consistent issue. There's also something really interesting, if I can continue to, I feel like I'm reading bedtime stories to everybody here, but there were 20 privately paid attorneys, according to the Tribune, fighting Mr. Sierra, who had already been adjudicated to be innocent and freed from prison. So there's one firm that was racking up $10,000 in billings a week. It's a pretty good system. So I think, Eleni, that contributes to some of the financial pressures that you're facing in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, we've got a lot of them. There's no doubt. And, when we keep going down the same path over and over again, it's like, what's that phrase? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
A different result. Yep.
Insanity. Like, at some point we have to start implementing changes to these systems that, and it's not even like systems, it's like bad behavior that hasn't been, no one's hands been slapped yet to be like, hey, like, that's not the way we should do this. We have to be more, sound of mind when we're cutting, I don't want to say cutting these deals, but, doing these negotiations and figuring out these settlements, because it racks up, as you just said. And, it gets worse and worse and worse just like the property tax issue gets worse and worse and worse until at some point someone says, okay, like we're going to fix it now. And when we fix it, it's not, I think the other issue you have is that people are like, oh, well, we fixed it yesterday. It's not fixed by today. Obviously that didn't work. Well, that's not how you can't fix these types of issues overnight. These take, and it's not like a Band-Aid fix, because that's what we've seen time and time again, with all sorts of financial issues that face the city and the state. Like, oh, let's just do this for 1 year. Let's just do this for 5 years. We need some very comprehensive reform measures to go into place so this can go back to being a place where people really feel comfortable living, and not just physically, but financially as well. And they don't have to worry, oh my God, my property tax bill just doubled literally in my last installment. Like, how does that happen? And, what am I going to do to make that work? So other than hiring an attorney and appealing my taxes and praying for the best. So it shouldn't have to be this way. That's all I'm going to say. It shouldn't have to be this way.
So I have had some experience with this practice of wrongful convictions and defense of wrongful convictions. As you know, I talked about that in a previous podcast when we talked about the death of George Ryan. There is a machine on both sides, but there is a machine of lawyers and law firms that make a killing in fees defending places like the city of Chicago against complaints against their police departments. And rather than spending that kind of money on the risk management or on the things that we're seeing in the consent decree, they're spending, as in this case, millions and millions of dollars trying to fight a settlement with a guy who at every turn has been exonerated for wrongful conviction. And now there has to be an effort to protect taxpayers, but when you're spending $10,000 a week on legal fees to fight a settlement for a wrongfully convicted individual, something is wrong with that case. The Tribune went on to talk about how New York is doing it in a more effective, cost-effective way, doing more of the work in-house. I'm sure there's some issues with the New York system as well, but successive mayors have all taken the same hard-nosed approach with their city law departments, with people that sue the city for the misconduct of its employees. It doesn't matter if they're progressive. It doesn't matter if they're reformers. They're all continuing this. These firms have been defending the city and litigating on behalf of the city and fighting every moment on behalf of the city for 30 years.
Growth industry. Sadly. The part of that Tribune article that I found there were two parts that I found very interesting. You mentioned the New York, the in-housing. The other aspect, again, to say, is the current system working to anyone? Does anyone think the current system's working great? It appeared, according to the reporting, that the comptroller, the separately elected comptroller in New York, is like, I get it. I'm going to recommend a settlement to try and save the taxpayers money. And, if we look back over the abuses of City Hall over the years, I remember, the Shackman decree and all that to control the hiring and this, at one point, I don't know if you call them the financial rights of taxpayers become important enough that someone would say this current system is utterly absurd and no one is looking out for the interests of anyone involved in this matter, and it's hurting everybody. And I thought the most remarkable part, the truly remarkable part, was Mr. Sierra himself saying, as a taxpayer, I found this offensive. I wanted to move on with my life. It's not good for us. Like, that person should be the poster child of a wrongfully convicted person saying, I'm not trying to hurt my community where I'm from. I want to move forward with it. And, if we, to Eleni's point, the same system exists, bills are going to rack up. And I think they said, $500 million worth of settlements are expected. But I'm sure we got the money for that as well. What a mess. I mean, if it was a $500 million class action settlement, there'd be a special master set up for almost anything else, right? And they'd be adjudicating them and submit your claim. Let's build the pipeline. Let's get it done. If what was it? Sam Bankman-Fried's case could be resolved quickly, and it was expensive, but probably less expensive than what Chicago's been paying, and everyone got their money at the end of the day. So there's systems. To Eleni's point, is their will to fix it.
Well, that is all pretty terrible. Taxes are going up, and there's no hope. I think that's our summary on that. Eleni, let's go to what sounds terrible. But first, producer Grace has to give us our sounder for sounds terrible. Okay. Thank you, producer Grace. Eleni, what sounds terrible?
This is pretty
Now, can I just point out one other thing before you do? Eleni, a year ago, it's been a year that we've been doing this little podcast, you had an infamous sounds terrible as we approached the holy day of Easter.
Yeah. What did I say? Like the crucifixion or something? That's pretty terrible.
Crucifixion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty terrible.
Yeah, but this one's going to be more related to like breaking news that you guys may not know about yet. I'm not going to talk about it in full because if you know, you know. But I'm going to go with sounds terrible, Christy Noems' husband. And if the dog was put down, I don't know where things are at in that household right about now. So,
especially now that she's returned home, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, just caught a little news.
Go for a walk, honey.
Little news segment before I jumped on here. I was like, yeah. Hope they got him on in witness protection because he ain't gonna make it through the night.
Something in his Easter basket may go kaboom.
Yeah. He's probably looking forward to the crucifixion. He's hoping he is the one that's crucified at this point.
Patrick, what sounds terrible to you?
Well, as we all know, I have frequently commented on the international state of potholes. And I have yet another installment for our loyal viewers. We talked about Beryl Barrett. May she rest in peace after tripping on that pothole in England. But in South Africa, a 75-year-old mayoral candidate donned a wetsuit, snorkel, and goggles and went for a swim in an enormous pothole that had existed for 3 years in the city of Johannesburg. 3 years.
That's making Chicago look pretty good.
Props to the 75-year-old former mayor of Cape Town. I mean, this person is truly devoted. And the part I find truly remarkable is the gold. And remember, Johannesburg is the gold city. They're built on the reserves of gold, but they got the potholes. The mayor, after taking the shellacking, the incumbent mayor for this viral stunt, fixed the pothole the next day. So again, to all the mayors, to all the governments, fill the potholes before they become a viral sensation against you. And I will continue to keep our loyal viewers updated on pothole status around the world.
As someone famous once said, thank you for your attention to this matter. So my sounds terrible also will help put things into perspective because there's a pothole, if you will, that I can very easily fall into at any given moment. I'm thankful that the Chicago Tribune has started to provide archived articles on this date in history. And when I was trying to make some sense of the city's budget situation and the corrupt nature of our city and state politics and our long legacy, I found that things could be worse. So on March 22nd, 1928, do I have that date? Yes, 1928. So just 98 years ago, Alderman Diamond Joe Esposito was walking down the street with his two bodyguards, Ralph and Joe Varchetti. And while he was almost in front of his home on South Oakley Boulevard, in the midst of his campaign for election as a Republican committeeman for the 25th Ward, Patrick, where he had risen to, as the Tribune wrote, power and wealth, the, quote, picturesque Italian leader fell with 58 bullets in his head and body from 2 double-barreled shotguns and 1 revolver. The bodyguards, Ralph and Joe, were untouched by the barrage of bullets. Though Esposito was walking between them. And last night, Chicago police held them, this is last night, as in 1928, held them, quote, under suspicion of having put Esposito on the spot, unquote, of having him at that place at that time, previously arranged with the assailants. So, things could always be worse in the city council, and that perhaps the past is prologue. So you may have a couple of bodyguards. That's the last time a Republican had a prominent
Connected
office.
with wealth and prestige and being a committeeman in Chicago, they just snuffed that out right there, huh?
It's one way to get rid of Republicans. They can usually, today they do it to themselves, but back then it took 58 bullets. But Ralph and Joe didn't get a scratch, but Diamond Joe took 58 plugs. It's pretty bad. That sounds terrible. And if it's terrible, you've come to the right place. It's Can't Wait. Sounds terrible. For Eleni, for Patrick, and producer Grace, I'm Dennis. We'll see you next time.